Find your hands. Find your hands. Put your hands together. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Think about God. Dear Lord God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for being awesome and holy, and we just give you all the praise and glory for everything that you do for us. We thank you for each person here. We thank you for Miss Rebecca, Miss Lisa, Mr. David, and Miss Elena. And we pray for those who aren't here and bring them back together next time, Lord. We ask that you would forgive us of the things that we do wrong that are called sin and help us to do better next time. We pray for these requests. David is praying today, Lord, that Christmas will be here soon. And we know that's far away, but help him to understand that and help the Christmas to come at just the right time for him. Elena would like to pray for her dog, Comet. And she would like her dog, Comet, she'd be able to see him. I think he's living with her cousins. And Rebecca is thankful for the wedding she got to go to. And we are so thankful when you bless us with events and things that we get to do and see, and our pets and everything. We just thank you for your true word, the Bible, Lord. We ask you that you help us to learn what we need to know from this story today. Put your words in our mouth, put your thoughts in our head, put your song in our heart. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Okay, we looked at some really cool things so far today. What did we make in the bottle?
A cloud.
A cloud. And who's going to be in a cloud today?
Jesus.
Jesus is going to be in the cloud today. And we made a cloud by putting some rubbing alcohol in our bottle. And we used a foot pump. And we made some high pressure. Because when there's high pressure, there's no cloud. And after the high pressure is gone, and we take it out, the pressure gets lower and lower.
Oh my goodness.
Is it tight enough? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I took it off too soon. Took it off too soon. I let it leak out through my hand. Did you feel it? Let's try one more time.
I'll tell you when we stop.
You told me to do that. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Okay, here we go. There it is, the cloud in the bottle.
And you're squishing it all
I'm
out.
squishing it out so you can see it. And then we looked at this. What was this today?
A transformer.
A transformer. And it kind of looks like, what did you say this looked like?
Dog.
A dog. And then we made it to look like a man. It transformed. And in our story today, Jesus is going to be transfigured. So he's still going to be Jesus, but he's going to look a little different. He's not going to change shape like this did. But he's going to look like probably the way we look when we go to heaven. He's going to have lots of light around him. And the disciples that see it, they're going to be really surprised. They're going to have their surprise face on for sure.
Because there's a prize face.
Look at this, yeah, in that picture. And then we played with these. What were these? Fishing poles. And what did we catch?
Fish.
Fish. And in our story today, the second miracle we talk about, there's going to be fish and a fishing pole. So those are all going to be things that we talk about today in our story. It's big, but it's all in the book of Matthew. So find your Bible.
Found it.
Turn to the book of Matthew. That's where everybody's verses.
I know.
Find your bookmark.
I don't know.
We are all in Matthew 17. It's the yellow paper. The yellow paper is Matthew 17. That's where we all are. And our title is the Transfiguration. That's the first miracle. And Jesus pays the temple tax is the second miracle. So 2 miracles. Last week we had 2 miracles. When, let's see, what did we do last week? Jesus was walking on water. And then we talked about the big catch of fish that he made when Peter and Andrew and James and John were called to be the disciples. So 2 different miracles last week. And Miss Rebecca is going to be our first reader. Are you ready? Get your listening ears on. Miss Rebecca is going to read Matthew 17, verse 1. What does it say about who is going to be in our story?
After 7 days.
6
days.
Jesus.
Jesus took Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, with him. He led them up to a high mountain. They were all alone.
Okay, so who's there? Jesus. And here are some disciples. So it is Peter. Peter's there, Simon Peter. And James. Who else in here has a brother named James? Miss Rebecca has a
That
brother.
is not what the
This is not your brother. James, and then it said James' brother, and his name was John. So there's 3 disciples with Jesus, and they went up on a mountain, and I put this map up here.
3.
There's 3. This one, Andrew's not with them. It didn't say Andrew, did it? No, it just said Peter, James, and
Then
John.
why don't you have
I had Andrew up here because he's Peter's brother. He was in last week's story when they caught all the fish. So he was still up here from last week. And they went to a mountain, and you see this little circle right here?
Yeah.
This is a topographical kind of map, and that little circle means it's way up high. It says Mount Tabor, so that's where they were. They were on Mount Tabor. Nazareth is where Jesus grew up, and they're going to go to Capernaum, way up here by the Sea of Galilee in the second part of our story. But today, and this very first part, they're at Mount Tabor, which is a big, tall mountain. And they were all alone. It says they were all alone because they want you to know that the miracle that happens when somebody else shows up. Somebody else is going to show up. And as we're talking about this story, I want you to think about these words. This is the Transfiguration part of our story, which means a complete change in how something looks. So Jesus is going to change how he looks. And they're going to describe it. That's this word. They're going to explain or tell about it. Like if you had to describe this fish, what would you say about this fish? What color is he?
Yellow.
Yellow. What else would you say about him? Cute. He's yellow. Is he big or little? Little. Funny looking. What color are his eyes? White and black. So that's how you would describe something. So in our story today, when people read, they're going to describe what Jesus looks like. And one of the words they're going to use is this word right here. Shone. And it has to do with shining like the sun. Like the sun shone through the window, or the sun shone onto the mirror and reflected light. And sometimes it means to glow brightly. Like if it's dark and you have something that glows in the dark, or a flashlight, it might shine brightly in the dark, so it's shown in the dark. So those are some words in our story. And these are going to be miracles, things that only God could do. And look at this phrase, the Son of Man. That is a name that Jesus calls himself. And so there's going to be some directions at the end of this part of the story that says, wait to do something until the Son of Man does something. Because we need to remember, are you listening? Miss Elena, are you listening? That Jesus is all God and all man, all at the same time. So that's one of the things we're going to remember in this story today. Okay, so if Daniel was here, he would be our next reader. So put on your listening ears and listen to how this verse that Daniel would read describes what Jesus looked like when this happened. It says, there in front of them, this is verse 2, Jesus' appearance changed. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. So what were some words that describe Jesus? Rebecca?
Light as white.
White as light. His clothes changed, and his face shone like the what? What's up in the sky that we see that's bright?
Sun.
The sun, right. Okay, so that's what happened. If Levi was here and says sleeping at his house, if Levi was here, listen to what he would read. He would say, this story also is written down in the book of Mark. And in Mark 9:3 it says, this is talking about Jesus, his clothes became as so white they shone, and they were whiter than anyone could bleach them. So bleach is a thing that people use to make clothes white. Like if you were using the washer and dryer over there, and you washed them, and you wanted things to be whiter, you put bleach in them. But Levi's verse says, that it was so white and so bright that nobody could make things that bright just being here on earth. So it was something.
Except for the sun could make it that.
Well, that's not a thing here on earth, is it? It's up in the sky. And the other verse that talks about this is in the book of Luke. So this story is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And Luke says, listen to what Luke says, what his clothes look like. He's going to compare it to something else. Think about what these words are that describes it. Are you listening? Here it comes. As he was praying, so Jesus is praying, the appearance of his face changed. Miss Elena, I can't see you. And his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. Have you ever seen lightning?
Yes.
Yeah. Is that pretty bright?
Yes. Yeah.
Is that easy to look at?
Yes.
Yeah. And it's powerful too. So Jesus
But
is...
that's fun. That's really fun for me.
You like to watch the lightning come in? So his clothes changed to be looking like a flash of lightning. And listen to what happens. This is a picture. This is the picture that we have up here on our wall. The picture in our story today. Guess which one Jesus is? What do you think, Rebecca?
The middle.
The middle, the one in the, what color is his clothes?
White.
White, because all these are talking about his white clothes. Here's the three disciples. Who were they? Peter, James, and John. But look, there's some more people in this picture. Who could
The
these
old
people?
grandma and grandpas.
Well, two older guys. There's no grandmas, just two older guys. So let's listen to Connor's verse to find out who these two older guys that just kind of appear right there. Let's see what it says that they are. His verse is Matthew 17:3-4. Just then, Moses and Elijah appeared in front of them, and Moses and Elijah were talking with Jesus. So what do you think? What kind of faces do these disciples have on here?
Surprise.
They're surprise faces. So there you
No,
go.
they're scared.
And scared. And Peter talks. Peter likes to talk. So he spoke up right away and he said, Lord, that's who he calls Jesus, Lord. Lord, it is good for us to be here. If you wish, I will put up 3 shelters. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. That's what he said he was going to do. Because he couldn't think of anything else to say. He was just so amazed. He wanted to stay right there and talk with them too. He's like, let's just make a camp and we'll just sit down here and talk with them. He was amazed. Because you know who Moses and Elijah are? Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Do you know who Moses is?
No.
He's the one who parted the Red Sea. He's the one who had the 10 Commandments. He was the one on our picture here. There's a baby in the little basket that grew up, saw the burning bush, went through the 10 plagues and got the people out of Egypt from Pharaoh. That's Moses. And Elijah was another person in the Bible who got rid of all the prophets of a false god. And he prayed that it wouldn't rain for 3.5 years, and it didn't rain for 3.5 years. Wow, so here's the part of our story where the miracle happened.
They're too smart.
With the cloud. Are you ready? You ready for the cloud part of the story?
Yes.
So in Matthew 17, verse 5, if you're still in Matthew, you can read ahead. In verse 5, it says, while Peter was still speaking, a bright cloud covered them. So the bright cloud was there, and they could you see in the bottle when I made that cloud? Could you see through the bottle? No, because the cloud was there. So he couldn't see very well once this cloud came. And a voice started talking to him. And this is Mr. David's verse and Miss Elena's verse. So let's get your fingers ready. Put it on our read together verse. And we're going to read this verse together to see. This is a voice in the cloud. Listen to what it says. This is my son, and I love him. I am very pleased with him. Listen to him. Who do you think said that? God. So if these words were in our Bible and we had the red letter Bible, it would be in red because God is talking.
Look, I have golden one.
You got it off yourself. So that's what happened in this story. And this reminds us of another time. Do you remember when Jesus was baptized? Do you remember that story when Jesus was baptized? We have a picture up on the wall when Jesus was baptized.
Yeah,
he came up out of the water.
He didn't need to be baptized. He already is baptized, right?
He didn't need to be baptized. And we even went to visit the baptistry. You remember that day we went up
Yeah.
there? But in this story, when Jesus was baptized, there was a voice that said in Matthew 3.
Was my cousin here when I did that?
Yes, she was. It said, a voice from heaven said in Matthew 3:17, this is my son, I love him, I am very pleased with him. And there was some kind of animal, a bird that came down. Do you remember what kind of, it was white.
Delivery bird?
I said delivery bird, a dove. It was a dove.
I don't know the name of dove.
It was a dove. That's right. So let's see, the disciples, remember, had their surprise face on. And it says that they were terrified in verse 6 through 8. They were terrified. They fell with their faces onto the ground. They
praised him.
Well, they could have been worshiping him, but they were also scared. And Jesus came up behind them, and he touched them. And he said, get up, don't be afraid. And when they looked up, there was nobody there except Jesus. Nobody except Jesus. So Moses and Elijah were gone. And it was just them. And as they came back down the mountain in verse 9, Jesus told them, don't tell anybody about what you've seen. This is this word right here, the Son of Man. He said, wait till the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. Do you think they know what that means? They didn't know what that means because Jesus hadn't done that yet. They had no idea what that means. But they knew they weren't supposed to tell anybody because that was what Jesus said to them. So don't tell anybody.
It looks like a real Bible.
Yep. So that was our first miracle, the Transfiguration. And here comes our second miracle. Are you ready? Still in the book of Matthew 17. So if you're still in Matthew 17, we're going to skip down to verse 24. And I find it really funny that Matthew is the only book that has this story in it about paying the temple tax. Because you know what job Matthew had before Jesus asked him to come and be a disciple? He wasn't a fisherman. He wasn't a fisherman like Peter, Andrew, James, and John. Do you remember what he was doing? He was a tax collector. So he's going to tell us the story about the collecting of the tax. And what is a tax? Do you remember what the tax was?
Something that you pay money.
Yes, something that you pay money. And when we go to the store, even now, you can see on your tax, on your receipt, it says what the tax, how much money you pay in tax. And the taxes go to help things like police and the firemen and the teachers and the government. And it helps take care of all these things. So this is the temple tax. So this tax helps take care of the temple. So that's what they were doing. And now they're back up in the city, Capernaum. Do you know who lived here?
Capernaum?
Capernaum. Peter lived here.
No, Jesus did.
No, Jesus came from?
No, Jesus lived everywhere.
Well, he moved around when he was born in Bethlehem, and then he moved to Nazareth. But they're going to go to Peter's house in Capernaum. And what body of water is this? Do you remember what this is? The Sea of what? Do you remember?
Galilee.
Galilee. Very good. The Sea of Galilee.
Why is there so much land?
There's so much land in this picture because the Sea of Galilee is surrounded by land. It's like a big lake. Like a big lake. That's where they had their fishing business.
Why is this on this?
Because Miss Jill doesn't want to lose it, and so she attaches it to the TV so I don't lose the remote. Okay, so let's look at verse 24. You ready? Here comes the second one, the second miracle. Jesus and his disciples arrived at Capernaum. The people who collected the temple tax came to Peter. Okay, so Peter's at his house. He's standing outside, like standing out in the front yard or standing out in front of his house. And it says, they asked him, doesn't your teacher pay the temple tax? So they're asking Peter, does Jesus pay the temple tax? What do you think Peter answered?
No.
He said yes. Because Jesus is always following the rules. He said, yes, he does. And then Peter kind of had to think a little bit. So let's think about what is happening. Peter's outside with the tax collectors, and he says, yes, he does. Those tax collectors probably weren't leaving until they got the money. They were there to collect the temple tax. The temple tax was not a whole lot of money, and you only paid it once a year, but it was 2 days of work is how much it was worth. So all that money that we looked at over there on the table, probably one that was worth more. Probably 2 whole days of work. So that's a lot of money for working 2 whole days. And that was what would go to the temple to help take care of it. And so Peter left the tax collector people, went into his house. Are you listening, Elena? Guess who's in the house? Jesus is right there. And before Peter can say anything, before he can say one word about what just happened outside, he came in the house, and in verse 25 it continues, Jesus spoke first. That's important because Jesus knows everything. What do you think, Simon? Remember, Peter's other name was Simon. Who do the kings of the earth collect taxes from? And do they collect them from their own children or from others?
Others.
Others. That was the right answer. You're right. It's just kind of like saying, if your dad was the king, let's say Elena's dad was the king. What's your dad's name?
Robert.
Robert. King Robert lives at his house with Queen, what's your mom's name? Colleen. Queen Colleen. And little Princess Elena and Princess Eden and Prince Levi. They all live there together. And he collects money from anyone else who lives in his house except his own kids. So Elena doesn't have to pay, and Levi doesn't have to pay, and Eden doesn't have to pay. But if you lived in his house and it was just me, I'm not one of his kids, I'd have to pay. So Jesus is saying, do the kings of the earth collect money from their own children or from others? And Elena answered right. Peter said in verse 26, from others. And here's the super secret way Jesus is going to tell Peter that he's God's son. He's God's son. He's all God, all man, all at the same time. And he said, then the children don't have to pay, Jesus said. So Jesus hasn't paid the tax because whose son is he? Who is
God.
God. And who does the temple belong to? God. But because Jesus is going to be our example, just like when he was baptized, did Jesus need to be baptized? No. Jesus is going to be our example here, and he's going to pay the temple tax, but guess where he gets the money? This is where the fish come in. Are you listening, Miss Elena? If you wanted to get money, would you go to a fish? Did you see one of my fish? What is in one of my fish, Rebecca?
$1 thingy.
$1 what?
Wait, coin.
$1 coin is in one of my fish. Well, listen to what Jesus tells Peter. Here's the second miracle. Are you ready to listen? Verse 27 says, we don't want to make them angry. This is Jesus still talking. See my red letters?
Yeah.
We don't want to make them angry, so go to the lake, throw in your fishing line. I don't think he had a special fishing line like Miss Jill. Throw in your fishing line, he said. Take the first fish you catch. Let's see if I can catch this fish. The first fish you catch. Open its mouth. There you will find the exact coin you need. Take it out and give it to them for my tax and for yours. Whoa. Have you ever gotten money from a fish?
Can I get that? No.
No, we've never gotten money from a fish. So just imagine, it doesn't tell us what happened after this. It just says Jesus told him to do this. But we can imagine that Peter was obedient. Let's see if I can find the next picture. It's not going to do. Look at this screen and let's see if Miss Jill can find the next picture of Peter catching this fish. Oh, it's not very big, is it? Do you see his surprise face?
No, make it bigger, bigger, way bigger.
And this is probably as big as it gets right there.
No, it can get bigger.
That's it. There he is. Look at them catching the fish. And what kind of coin was in there? This was a special coin. Here's a coin.
$1 coin.
This is, they didn't have dollars. Back in Jesus' time. They had things like shekels and drachmas. This is a 4 drachma coin with a picture of probably Caesar on it. So he took it out, and in this one I have a whole dollar. How many quarters, how many 25 cents make a dollar, do you know? 4 quarters make a dollar.
Oh my word.
So that's like 4 drachmas. 4 quarters make a dollar. And so that's the coin. So can you imagine Peter walking back outside the house, Miss Elena?
Yeah.
And he says to the guys, I don't have the money here. Come with me. Come with me. We're going to go get the money. And he takes those tax collectors down to the river, throws in his fishing pole, takes it out, and then he hands them this coin. Do you think they had their surprise faces on?
No.
Yes, they did. They were surprised. They were surprised. So one of the pictures that you get to take home today, are you watching? You got two pictures. One is about the Transfiguration, and one is about Peter catching the fish with the coin. There it is in his hand. Those are the pictures you're going to take home and you can color yourself. Okay? So the two miracles today was Jesus being transfigured and him paying the temple taxes, our example. So these two miracles point to Jesus being God's Son. All God and all man, all at the same time. So all the stories that we have right here before Easter is pointing to us knowing that Jesus is God's Son. So before we go, we're going to pray. So get your hands together. Let me see your hands. Elena, get your hands. David, you got your hands. Are you ready? We're going to pray before we go. Here we go. Put your hands together. Close your eyes. Think about God. Lord God, we just thank you for your true word, the Bible. We thank you for this story that shows us that Jesus is all God and all man, all at the same time. We pray, Lord, that you would help us to be followers of Jesus. Help us at just the right time, Lord, to confess with our mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in our hearts that God raised Jesus from the dead so that we can be saved. We just thank you for this story and help us today as we go from this place. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Good job being great listeners, guys.